Hey folks, here's the workroom. This wall was recently finished as far as getting the poles on goes. I've still got the treadmilling to do here and thinning out to do here and rearranging to do here, but this is essentially all hung. The spacing's fine, the amount of poles here is not going to change pretty much, more or less. But things will get cleaner and more organized and shuffled around and balanced out a little bit better in the upcoming days. And here you can see the Diefenbachs, all the stumpies, snake plants, what have you. This is late afternoon. It's, getting on close to 4, maybe, somewhere around there. And here's the Rhiphidophora. Finally not the jam behind something. And there's the avocado. Okay, moving on. Okay, quick gander at everything in the plant room. The only plant that really got hit by the sulfur, I think, with any kind of burn, is the Gupertia medallion. And I think one of my applications was excuse me, was done during too high of a temperature in the plant room. But everybody else is absolutely fine, and I think the damage here is going to be fairly easily mitigated by the plant. So we'll see. Worst comes to worst, if it ends up slowly killing the entire plant, which I don't think is going to happen, then I just cut off all the leaves, divvy up all the stems, and end up with half a dozen new medallions. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not worried about anything here. But there is a bit of crispy going on. This is also attributable to prior mite damage. Entirely. It's also attributable possibly to a reaction between the alcohol, water, and safer soap mixture and the sulfur, because I did apply them very closely to each other, and then there was a period of warm weather. It was the alcohol, and then the next day or 2 days after, when there was still soap residue here and there on the plants. Not a lot. Again, it was just a dash of the safers, but that dash could be anywhere from half a teaspoon to 4 teaspoons, depending upon how pulsified my wrist motion was at the time of the dash. So I'd estimate anywhere between 1 to 2 teaspoons into about 55 ounces of water. So yeah, that's I guess a moderate amount of safers. It could be less. I don't think it was past 2 teaspoons, but then doing sulfur 2 days later, and then having on the next day after that, 88 degrees in the room, that could have been enough, I think, to toast a few leaves. That whole scenario, the alcohol with the safers and water, and then the sulfur soon after, and then the high temp right after that, it could have happened. So there we have the medallion. Everybody here got hit. I did some severe trimming on the lower leaves of the cellulums. Not worried about that, but that afforded me the ability to tuck this medallion over to here. Here's the base plant of the gigas. I have a sprout there, and I have the top now already increasing in leaf size by the second leaf. This is the base for that top piece right there, and it's got a beautiful latest leaf. I'll show you guys in a moment. Aglaonema sunset. There are the two-stem gloriosum. There is the two-stem gloriosum plant there. I have one new leaf there, one new leaf there, and I can see new shoot at the end over there. There's the pictus, begindas. There's the Gupertia ornata is just really shaping up nicely, week by week. A little bit of leaf damage from the mites. Doesn't show the sulfur nearly as badly as any of the dark leaf plants. So there's that plus right there. It's got to get hit again. But the great thing about sulfur is during your first week, you don't have to panic that you didn't give maybe splendiferous coverage on every single square millimeter of the plant. You don't have to work it that way, I don't think. Get it in there, of course, if you can, but it'll do enough damage to the mites with this type of coverage, in my opinion. At this point, it's strictly a guesstimation, and I surmise and I presume, and from everything I've read on the internet, but I've checked out some of the scientific journals and the agricultural extensions of universities that mention it, not Reddit or YouTube, you know. My searches when it's for stuff like this is on the institutional scientific side only. Verifiable, research, botanical, horticulture, blah, blah, blah. When you have this kind of coverage at the new growth site, that's going to be more than enough, I think, to keep mite damage from affecting the new growth when the new growth finally pops out. And right now, this gigas is working on stem production and height increase. I'm watching this new leaf move upwards little by little every day, and you can see the size of the leaf. It's about 2.5 hand widths, and my hand width is certainly 6 inches. So yeah, that's easily an 18-inch leaf, which is one of my biggest so far for the gigases, and the other one is doing well as well. This is the one that has the multiple splits. I think it's got 3 stems now. I've got one down here on the right that's shooting up from the way base. Then there's another stem right there which is poking out right here, and then there's the top right here now just growing like a regular top. So it's now 3 separate stem growth points coming out on that one gigas. So there you go. I got 3 now. The baby melanochrysum is doing okay. There is going to be some leaf damage on what's showing up now. I'm not overly concerned. I'm pretty certain I know why. There is the soderoy. The emerging leaf is going to be hopefully like this one that just came out with the majestic after treatment. Now we're going to see what happens with the soderoy after treatment. And I'm still waiting on the verrucosum. That's really still, in my opinion, the only real quote-unquote guaranteed problem child. And it's all my fault, I've had a humidity drop over the past couple days trying to figure out the best configuration for the house. I had to test putting the humidifiers in a different configuration, one in another room, and this room suffered terribly. It went down to 40% for about a day and a half, close to 2 days. So I'm sure the plants didn't appreciate that either. At any rate, this is what this stuff looks like on the plant. Again, I did a misting, but this is after the second misting, about anywhere from 5 to 7 to 8 days after the first misting. I wanted to be a little bit more thorough, and now I think I have a week or two to relax, and then I'm going to apply it all again, and a little bit more heavily and more spotty the second time with much more heavier spotting. I'm going to lean towards that type of spraying as opposed to that type of spraying. I don't think you need a very thick layer, but I want it a little bit more. Maybe this is what I'm going to shoot for. Again, I don't want to block off too much of the leaves from light. That's a big no-no. This is probably perfect right here, what you see on the poly, for my taste, with a good amount visible right near the sinuses. That's not a bad amount of sulfur right there. Okay, and any of that hits a mite is going to help kill the mite, if not kill it outright. And I do have some. I did do some direct spritzes with the sprayer right at the center. Shoved the nozzle right down in there and went pss, pss, from a couple different sides. So it hit the stem, wet it thoroughly, and also ran down for a second or two right down into the substrate. At any rate, I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing as a result. I did a little bit of rearranging here, brought the Scindapsus moonlight out to the front so it's not as hidden. I still have some playing around to do with this little area here. I'm not that happy. I might put the jungle boogie on the floor and then put the Scindapsus moonlight on the table. We'll see. I've got some playing around to do. The golden crocodile is back into flower, and I had forgotten, all about that. All about the flowering of the sawtooths. They all stopped flowering for a while. And previous to that, they weren't really following anything like a seasonal rhythm. Neither were the gigases, neither was any alocasia. Everything was growing constantly at a good fast, I think, but at a good even clip. If not a good fast, but even clip. I mean, you got to remember, this place was warm. Okay, we were talking mid-90s on average during the day, and probably 76, 75, 74 at the lowest at night, and 50, 60 degrees humidity on average during the day, all the way up to 80, close to 90% humidity at night. So yeah, they were in pig heaven. I wouldn't be surprised, and whatever mites were here were being severely depressed by the no pest strips. If I know they weren't eliminated, but they were depressed up until that fateful day. Look at how nicely this little vine, though, is coming along on the gigas, one of the gigas reserves. After I got rid of the old original leaf that it was on the way out. It was already semi-translucent. This has to come out right there. There you go. This is again. This is a slightly older leaf, and this is what happens with mite damage. This is all, and I'm 99% sure that most of my problems with leaf emergence and most of my problems like this are being caused mostly by mites. Bear with me while I chuck this leaf to the trash. Are being caused mostly by mites and secondarily by my natural tendency to overwater. Here's again the jungle boogie, looking fine, and if you can ignore all the mess, on the left side of the entranceway, I put another painted lady. I have to get rid of that one too. And I'm going to be taking the pink princesses, the babies that I have now here. I'm going to start these on poles in the workroom, and they're going to be peppered in and among the lighter colored stuff over there. So yeah, I've got plenty of stuff to do. It all depends upon my back. When my back says it's okay and I got a few hours, then I got a few hours. Here again, flowers on the golden crocodile. Vesuvius is fine. The Ivory Coast alocasia is fine. All the alocasias are fine. The Caladium Hilo Beauty is still being a touchy SOB, as is the excuse me, the Verrucosum. So we'll see how things go. On ending with all of that, we'll finish in this corner for a change near the Ornata and the rattlesnake, and I will ask you all to have fun.